welcome everyone. And I want to thank you for coming to Flint Hills Publishing's 10th anniversary celebration. But the very first thing I have to say is, Pedro, where are you? Pedro, oh my gosh, you are amazing. I promised myself I wouldn't cry. What you have done to give us this space, but beyond that, what you have done for Topeka. You and your amazing partner, my dear friend, soul sister, Heather Graves, who is the owner of Onyx Salon and Wellness Spa in Noto, the Onyx Wellness Cafe, also in Noto, and Onyx Downtown. Yes, she's a very busy woman. You are entrepreneurial warriors for Topeka. I came to Topeka with my family in the mid-70s, and the energy and the love and the light and the intellect strategy you're bringing to Topeka, thank you. Love you both very much. So my name is Thea Rademacher, and over 10 years ago, what began as a very tiny spark in my mind has grown into a publishing house comprised of 48 authors and 99 books, and will reach the 100th mark about before the end of this year. We've shared a love of the Flint Hills beyond Kansas, get an electric that has, our house includes authors in Alaska, Arizona, California, Florida, Maryland, Massachusetts, Missouri, Nebraska, Ohio, South Carolina, Texas, and Australia. Now, there are two people who are no longer living earthside that I want to dedicate tonight's celebration to. Now, the first is Royce Fulmer. Royce had a big role in the commercial and residential development of Topeka and beyond. When Royce and his wife, Karen, moved next door to my family, we became very close friends. In 2014, while he was in his early 90s, I knew Royce was finally slowing down. I also knew he had led a very fascinating life and that his story really deserved to be told. I never imagined that I would be the one to help him until my oldest son, Nathan, said, "Mom, you should help Royce write his book." Well, thank you, Nathan, for that encouragement, because 4 months before Royce passed, and after a lot of very sweaty moments at the computer trying to figure out how to publish a book, I was able to hand him a copy of his book, A Drop in the Night, The Life and Secret Mission of a World War II Airman. And shout out to Steve, my husband, because that is a really good title, and he thought of it. This book shares Royce's remarkable story of being on a top secret mission, helping to drop supplies and spies, both men and women, from his airplane behind Nazi lines to aid the resistance. Yes, I still have hopes that it'll be a movie someday. So thank you, Royce, for your friendship. You changed the course of my life. The second pillar of inspiration was Joni Sabinsky, my teacher, mentor, and dear friend. During a visit to Phoenix that same year, 2014, that I published Royce's book, I gave her a copy of Royce's book. She told me she'd been carrying the seeds of a novel in her head for over 20 years. And without thinking, yes, Steve, I know, I'm trying to work on that impulsivity, I blurted out, "I can publish your book." And she accepted my offer immediately. And just like that, I had decided to replicate what I'd done for Royce. Joni passed in June of 2024, but the wisdom and guidance she gave me are with me always. Thank you, dear Joni. My little spark of an idea could not have grown without the help of so many wonderful people, the most significant being my brilliant, patient, and kind husband, Steve Fredrickson. You are the perfect partner for me in every way. Tom, Averill, Jeff Gowdy couldn't be here tonight, but I want to just thank them publicly. The encouragement that they have given me and continue to give me has been so important. Frankly, I'm very honored for their support. Marcia Sobolska, how thankful I am that the Topeka and Shawnee County Public Library invited you to speak at an author seminar, and how happy I am that I was in the audience. I instantly knew I needed to connect with you, and yeah, I stalked you a little bit. I'm so glad I could listen to my intuition, that you pivoted from your award-winning career as a remarkable playwright to become a Flint Hills Publishing author is the highlight, really, of the last 10 years. Thank you for all the guidance, for stop it, girlfriend, for giving me the confidence that I could do better, which wasn't always said, in the sweetest way, I will admit. She can be quite stern. And for helping me get my first speaking gig as a publisher, all the while becoming one of my dearest friends. And because of you, I met your partner, Tom Frosch, a brilliant professor who, by example, you may not know this, taught me a lot about proof editing when I read the proof that you did on Marsha's novel. So thank you, Tom. Thank you to Amy Albright, the world's most patient, talented, and generous book cover designer. I've said this many times before because it's the truth. Flint Hills Publishing could not exist without her creative and technical talents. Thank you to web designer extraordinaire, Greg German, who I think actually came here tonight. Hi, Greg. Your patience in working with me is remarkable, because I'm a little sloppy when it comes to some of the technical things, I know. And your generosity and your friendship are so appreciated. Thank you for making FlintHillsPublishing.com work so well and look so pretty. In the past few years, we've steered Flint Hills Publishing in some new and exciting directions. We've gotten more help. It takes a lot of time and effort to edit a book, and I'm lucky to have a great team of editors who've worked on a variety of projects in different capacities. Thank you, Todd Furtick, Wolfie Lopez, Andy Fredrickson, and Paul Fredrickson. Sandra Gore, you have helped me with so many different aspects of the house this past year. I'm amazed by your skills and look forward to our partnership expanding. I'm excited to see Wolfie also become more involved, she has been inspired to start a Flint Hills Publishing imprint called Under the Cottonwood Press that will focus on spiritual and metaphysical books. I'm really excited about that, Wolfie. Thank you to Nathan Fredrickson, who took a rest from his intense work as a counselor to become editor-in-chief. Nate, you make me fearless. With you, I'm confident that we can take on any project and make it shine. And the feedback I've received from your authors you've worked with this past year proves I'm right to feel that way. Now, creative people aren't always the best at the business end of things, so a big shout out to the Flint Hills Publishing Accounting Department, led by my dear husband, Steve Fredrickson. He's doing a lot of stuff in his paychecks for me. And assisted by Nick Fredrickson, both of them talented musicians with a head for the rhythm of numbers. Your help is why Flint Hills Publishing can become a real business. And of course, thanks to all the amazing authors that I've made sit up here on display, who place their trust in Flint Hills Publishing. You really are helping to lift the vibe of the world, and I thank you. We all thank you for that. I'm thrilled there are so many authors here tonight that you're going to get to meet. Now, the first one that I'd like to introduce really needs no introduction, but just in case you don't know, Dr. Walt Menninger is a third-generation member of a family credited with changing the shape of modern psychiatry. 100 years ago, this year, his father, grandfather, and uncle established the Menninger Clinic here in Topeka. Dr. Walt, come on up, served as the dean of the Menninger School of Psychiatry, the chief of staff of the Menninger Clinic, then president and CEO of the Menninger Clinic until his retirement in 2001. And as the size of his book attests, it's really, really big. There's a whole lot more to his story. Dr. Walt, you know how to talk to the mic. Get close. We want to hear you. Oh, no, you have no script. You just have to wing it. I admit, Dr. Walt, that I was a little nervous the first time that I called you on the phone and we were going to talk about publishing your book. But I'll let you guys in on a little secret. The man is a really good communicator. He really knows how to listen, and it instantly made me feel at ease. And I have to say, working with you and Todd Furtick has just been a joy. So, Dr. Walt, I think it's more than fair to say you've led an extraordinary life. What was it that you were called recently, the Forrest Gump of psychiatry?
Forrest Gump of psychiatry. Because as outlined in a number of instances in the book, I've managed to be kind of on the edge of things happening here or there in the course of life, whether it's connections with the White House or other kinds of events that have happened.
Yeah, you've met some pretty famous people, had quite some interesting interactions, absolutely.
Well, I'm blessed.
Well, now getting to know you, I have observed a lot about your lifestyle, and I have come to some conclusions of my own on what it takes what you can do to live a great life with someone. You'll be turning 94 this fall. I know you're not shy about your age. I think you should be proud of it. What do you think are some secrets to successful maturation?
Listening.
Listening.
It helps to have a good start with a family that supports you. It helps to be blessed by enough talent that you can pass on. But there are remarkable people who will share their wisdom if you just listen.
It's good advice. I'm taking that advice because I'm listening to you, Dr. Walt. Thank you for trusting us with your book. It's been a fantastic book. So, if you've read the book, you'll know that Dr. Walt was one of the first people to work in the Washington, D.C. office in the Peace Corps. And we also have an author who has just published a memoir about her time working with the Peace Corps in Brazil. Dr. Walt was kind enough to write the prelude, the foreword, thank you, there we go, to the book. So, Dr. Walt, I'm going to let you interview Ann Spry. Ask her a question.
It brought back a lot of memories as I was going through the book. But one of the things that I guess I learned a little bit that there was an impetus for you to join the Peace Corps with your partner, because at that time one of the options was Vietnam. And I don't know that you've ever been to Vietnam, but I don't think Brazil was exactly a garden party.
No, not if you count tarantulas and scorpions and all kinds of creepy crawlies. No, it wasn't.
Could you share a little bit of lessons that you learned or carried out of the Peace Corps that have been useful to you as you progressed in your journalistic career and the rest of your life?
I would say that the chief thing that I learned from Brazil was leadership and organization, and those things have stood me in really good stead through 27 years of publishing a newspaper and through all the volunteering that I'm doing right now in Topeka with the Kansas Authors Club and our Sweet Adelines group, Topeka Acapella Unlimited. So I'm a perpetual volunteer.
What did you consider the Peace Corps experience? You were not prepared to do this. You surmounted every obstacle?
No. The obstacles that we did not surmount were embedded bureaucracy and a patron system that was a holdover from colonial days, and it was very hard to get anything done with government. But fortunately, we had Brazilian lottery proceeds and were able to build a child care center. luck, networking, being in the right place at the right time.
Did they teach you that in Peace Corps training?
No. No, they didn't.
You knew how to pick out the right ticket?
I think so. We did work with the Catholic Church, and I was supervised by a bishop, and he was able to put us in touch with the lottery.
What was the worst time in your Peace Corps?
Wow, there were so many worse times. I'm going to read a little bit about
Okay.
that.
I won't steal that.
Okay.
Anyway, it was fascinating because I worked early in the Peace Corps with Peace Corps Washington in the selection and training of Peace Corps volunteers, and continued to be involved with the Peace Corps. And there's a morale curve that we identified as the Peace Corps volunteers went through their experience. We subsequently translated that in a more general term to life experience, that we all go through a certain pattern of adaptation when we go into these situations. But there's a chapter in her book that characterized that point that all the Peace Corps volunteers most of them experience when the bloom is off the rose and the enthusiasm and new excitement of the new experience is gone by the way. And they sort of say, what am I doing here?
That's exactly what happened. I'm going to read about where he identified my morale curve.
I'm going to let you.
Okay, you can go ahead and sit down. They never warned us we might be burying children. In fact, I don't recall the death of a child mentioned in any of the informal or formal Peace Corps educational and cultural sessions we attended, except perhaps as a vague malnutrition statistic. And I talk about this child in a coffin that I had to put stephanotis blossoms around his head. That was the way they embalmed people in rural northeast Brazil. And then we had a procession to the cemetery. It was about 7 kilometers long walk. There is nothing pleasant about today's trip. Matter of fact, it's drudgery and tragedy. I hate walking this far. It's hot. I'm sweating. The broadcloth material that had seemed perfect attire for the tropics when I made a pair of culottes and a short, side-slitted overdress before we left the States did not breathe. In fact, it had turned into a water tank for sweat. My predominant thoughts heightened the drudgery and discomfort. Just 6 months into our assignment in Brazil, and I am questioning everything. Why are we here? How can we ever hope to accomplish any good in this place when we have to battle 3 centuries of entrenched poverty and misery? We yanked ourselves away from the comforts and fun of a college campus and the novelty of a new marriage to land in this hot place, full of dangerous, creepy crawlies. We sleep on a scratchy straw mattress at night and long for McDonald's hamburger and fries by day. We try to coax our stubborn Germanic tongues into the silky sounds of Portuguese and meet questioning stares and laughter at our often clumsy attempts to communicate. As we finally reach the cemetery and the sweaty, tired children lower Manuel's coffin into a new grave dug out of the stubborn clay, I let the tears escape. Tears for this child, for my ineptitude in being any help at all to his family or the rest of the people in this God-forsaken place. Tears of homesickness and self-pity. Tears even for my own father, deceased so many years ago. I had vowed long ago that nothing like this would get through the gates of my locked heart. I would not show any emotion, any weakness whatsoever. I was a strong, independent American woman. I was Annie Oakley, fighting bad guys and ready to do battle against the forces of hunger, malnutrition, poverty, and ignorance in a foreign land. God, why am I here? Why did we think we were needed in this place? How could we have been so idealistic and naive? Why are we not back home with our friends protesting the war and joining the revolution against the crumbling status quo and hypocrisies in our own country? But as the tears dry in the tropical sun, leaving white streaks of salt down my face, I know why we're here and why there's no going back, at least not yet.
I owe a Topeka friend who moved to Florida, Shano Trimble, a big thank you for connecting me with Sharon Leino. After her retirement from a successful career as a special ed teacher and curriculum developer, and then caring for her beloved husband until he passed, Sharon finally had the time to write. She is passionate about writing stories for kids. I've loved watching Sharon bloom into the author of several books, and to see the working relationship between her and her daughter Gretchen Peters has been amazing. These two are marketing bulldogs, and I want to thank you for flying in from Florida for this event. I'm amazed at how hard you are working and all you're both learning. Oh, all right. Well, thank you so much. Sharon, as an educator, come on up and talk right into the mic. Absolutely. Yes, for sure. Or you can use this one. Okay. Share with us why you think it's important that we encourage our children to read.
Okay. Since my memory is like a sieve, I have to use my notes. Okay, but we're going to start with, how would you like to read about the adventures in Lucerne? No. They're a chapter book. My children don't read. They don't read? How would you like to read the adventures in Lucerne? What are they about? They are a children's chapter book.
My children are just too busy.
Who's too busy? Would you like to read about the adventures in Lucerne?
I'm not sure.
That's a children's chapter book.
Oh, well, my children are in sports and they just don't care.
Okay. I think we as adults need to remember one of the most important assets we have are our children, whether you're a parent or not, and they should be encouraged to read because of its value and joy. The more a child reads, the larger the vocabulary, the better their comprehension and critical thinking becomes. A child that reads has more advantage than non-readers. A few of them are better language and grammar skills, problem-solving skills, and creativity. Now, when I was a child, my mother used to, every summer, have us walk to our city library, which was 2 miles away, every week to get books. And I remember a time when the librarian said that I could not read the Boxcar Children. I was too young. I was really mad and vowed to make sure I read that. But I'm thankful that my mother gave us that love of reading. And I think I have passed that on to my daughter as she was reading before she entered school. She was a ferocious reader. And it was difficult trying to find the books appropriate for her age and yet challenging. Well, I came across a book called Watership Down. That was a fantasy book about rapids. It had 156 words in it, and at age 11, she devoured it. And so I'm just grateful that she also loves books, and I was going to make sure that nobody stopped her from reading whatever she wanted.
When a child is read to, they learn to quiet their bodies and prepare their minds to listen. When a child is read to, they develop a desire to know more, to find out what happens next. When a child is read to, they learn to read. Reading opens doors to new worlds, introducing stimulations, and situational experiences that help their mind and emotions to grow. Please take the time to find subjects that interest the children in your life, whether they're your own, your neighbor's, a nephew. It does not matter. Volunteer as much as you can. Find what the child likes, whether it's history, fantasy, drama, sports, mysteries, or science. There is something for everyone.
Thank you. Oh, thank you.
Our next author also has Topeka roots, but he's abandoned us for Lawrence. And like Dr. Walt, he is a Topeka High School graduate. Bill Sampson received his undergraduate and law degrees from KU before serving 4 years active duty as a Navy judge advocate. He enjoyed a very successful career in the courtroom, becoming the partner at 2 prestigious law firms. Bill, I'm inspired by your retirement pivot where you went from the courtroom as a litigator to become an author. But mostly I appreciate all the free legal help you have given me about my contract. Appreciate that a lot. Bill wrote Wheat Fields in 2022, and if you're a KU basketball fan, you should read this novel. There was a character, though, in that book that was a fan favorite. I think that's fair to say. And I think it's what inspired him to write his second novel. So thank you, Bill, for sharing a reading from that novel, Faria.
Thanks very much, Thea. I'm going to read a chapter called Rain. Faria is a sophomore. She's returned to Lawrence, begun her sophomore classes when she meets Stephen at a house party. Their relationship dominates the middle of the book. Vulnerable after her time in Iran, Faria falls hard for him. But exploitation is at the core of the relationship for Stephen, and it is Faria who pays a heavy price for it. The loss of her place in the KU Honors Program. Faria goes to her meeting with her honors advisor through a downpour. If you've lived in Kansas for very long, you know what I'm talking about. In the chapter called Rain, we will walk her there through the storm. There isn't time for her actual meeting with Professor Locklear, where she is told that she'll have to drop out of the honors program. But we pick her up back in her room as she tries to process what has happened. Faria had seen rain like this before. In the spring of her freshman year, it had been April, and she'd just pushed through the front door of her scholarship hall on her way to the Union when she saw a wall of gray just past the porch. It wasn't a dull gray. Thousands of clear beads moved on its surface. Thousands more moved inside it. Teardrop-shaped, the beads bore downward and splattered as they hit the ground, bursting sideways and upward off the hard surface of the sidewalk. All the way to the street from the covered porch, tiny, translucent geysers sprang up from the pavement to rush past or intercept the beads falling down toward them. And when they crashed together, as they did constantly, their mid-air explosions joined the barrage along the sidewalk. Her freshman year, she had turned around and gone back to her room, glad the trip to the Union could wait. But Faria was a sophomore. She had the same honors advisor who had inspired her as a freshman, who had led her on last summer's intellectual frolic to England, and who was again her favorite teacher, this time in a seminar about women writers. Her advisor had asked her to come to Wesco Hall for a conference. She was due there in 10 minutes. She would be late if she did not step off the porch. So she stepped off into a rain so furious she felt like she was walking into the ocean's surf during a storm. Faria's jeans and sneakers were soaked before she could look down to notice them. Her umbrella failed next, twisting into a bright blue flag that announced her coming to anyone foolish enough to be out looking for her. No match for the wind when untied, the hood of her Sierra Designs jacket nearly flipped back from her forehead. Dropping the umbrella, Faria was able to secure the hood beneath her chin and protect her hair. 5 minutes later, after running most of the way to Wesco and clearing its few outside steps onto the safety of its porch, her shoulders were dry, and her hair. But she looked like she had been wading in her clothes. So we'll skip the interview with the teacher. She's now back in her room. Faria set the letter on her desk. Her hair was still wet, and the strand of it that had strayed beneath the collar of the bathrobe loosed a drop of cold water down the middle of her back. Shivering in response, she wrapped the robe more closely around her and walked to her bed. Although it was still midday, she wanted to sleep, but she had to do something with her hair. She got up again, lifted a towel out of the clothes hamper in the closet, applied it vigorously to the top of her head, then pitched it back into the hamper. When she got back to her bed, she climbed under the covers, but still, she sat upright, looking out the window. Academic success had come fast. Already in the honors program when she arrived in Lawrence, she had surprised the Department of Mathematics by offering to test out of her entire undergraduate degree a few days after classes started, then dazzled the entire university by doing so in a stand-up chalkboard tour de force in Snow Hall. Her exceptional freshman grades reflected her exceptional papers and tests. She went to England and Scotland the next summer, returned to Lawrence, and capped her first semester as a sophomore with her selection as a university scholar. It had all come so easily. It was easy not to grieve the loss of a part of it. Fatigue, embarrassment, resignation, hurt, all of these circled the afternoon, but not loss. Loss would come later, next fall. She would miss the honors program next fall. She would miss the challenge Professor Locklear had spoken of. Mostly, she would miss the camaraderie, working with her friends to understand and solve the problems Locklear and the other gifted teachers presented, laughing with them over tea in the Union, walking home with them as the light in the sky above Daisy Hill gave way to Eden. Now, she was mostly cold. Her hair splayed as she fell back against the pillow. She tugged the covers up to her chin to answer yet another shiver that raced from her shoulders to her knees. The last thing she saw before her eyes closed was the daylight on the other side of the window. It was still raining.
Sadly, Ruth Moss is under the weather, but her book, Lunacy and Acts of God, is hilarious. It's for sale here. If you need a good laugh, and don't we all, I would encourage you to check it out. The day that I told my boss at the Topeka Legal Aid Society that I had decided to resign my position because I was 9 months pregnant with my third son, I cried like a baby. And that was in large part, come on up, Pat, because I loved working for this man. He is absolutely brilliant. After serving in Vietnam as a Marine, he designed airplanes for a living, but then decided that he wanted to do something more to help people. So he got his law degree from KU and became a social justice attorney extraordinaire. Pat is a Renaissance man, a musician, an advocate, an outdoorsman, and now an author. So, Pat, thanks for being here. It's so good to see you, sir.
You're not talking about me.
I am. Yes, I am. You're pretty awesome. So you have written a collection of all your writings. You told me it's just something you had to do. In fact, you finished a story that you found when you're cleaning out your mother's nursing home. So just tell us just kind of very quickly, because this man can talk, what will we find in your collection of stories? And put your mouth right up to the mic.
Well, first, my mom was a longtime member of the Kansas Authors Club. I tried to make illiterate, but I wasn't successful. So later on, passion she had for writing rubbed off on me. I found one of her incomplete stories kind of by accident, and I finished it. And then I thought, well, I'll just go ahead and write some more. So I wrote some more. I knew Thea said, look at these. She decided to put them in a book, so the book's in there if you're interested. It's called Trajectories. I write about love, loss, war, science fiction, and redemption is a theme that runs through things I write. I'm about done with another book. And I thank Thea for, I was interested in doing this, but I didn't really know how to get started. And then I knew Thea, and she took me the rest of the way, so we have stuff in print now.
It's terrific. Well, there's a story in there that makes me cry every time I read it. So and there's also some stories that made me laugh, and you've got a couple children's stories in there too.
Yeah, I wrote some kid stories,
and some music that you've written.
And some music, and I tried some poetry, but we don't want to go very deep into that.
Well, yeah, okay. Yeah, I A for effort. Pat, you're such an optimistic person, and you know so many things about so many subjects, and you and I've had a lot of interesting political discussions over the years, to put it frankly, but can you give us a reason to be hopeful for our country, for our future?
Humor. We need to focus a little bit more on that. The other thing that is very, very important to me is something I learned in the military, actually, and that is thrown together in this melting pot. And the main thing that's important is the mission. And so while you're busy doing the mission, you put all that other stuff we fuss about aside, and then you go do the mission, and the mission's over, and you kind of forgot about that. And I think that if we stay a little more mission focused and trust our neighbors, it'll be okay. I was just going to quote Will Rogers here. If stupidity got us into this mess, why can't it get us out? And there's one more thing then. Never miss a good chance to shut up.
He was fun to work with. I actually really look forward to our Thursday meetings. It was fun. So, thanks, Pat. Another Pat, Patrick Kelly. When Patrick reached out to me with his book about the history of K-State wrestling, maybe he was a little surprised about how enthusiastic I was, because when I was a very young girl, my cousin was a two-time state high school champion. It was in the 1960s, and it was like a really big, exciting deal. And recently I've been so impressed with how the sport has become popular with girls. And I know you've been involved with that. He is the perfect person to write this book. You wrestled in high school, college, you coached, you've been a fabulous teacher at Seaman School District, correct? And I'm so impressed with this book. I encourage all of you to read it. It's got some cool Kansas stuff. So Pat, what inspired you to write this book? And tell us how you went about your incredible historical research.
Probably the inspiration for it, when I finished coaching at the high school level, I just had more time to do writing. I've done writing, throughout my career, and I delved deeper into this subject of the Kansas State University wrestling program. I've heard about it since I moved here, not a native Kansan, and as I started uncovering the stories, it just became so exciting and compelling that I couldn't stop. So I had a connection in Iowa, Mike Chapman, who has written 30 books, mostly about wrestling, but in politics and things too. And I just didn't know, who to tell about this. I told my wife Lisa, sitting in the back there, she wasn't so excited about it. So I one day after school, I called Mike Chapman, and I just couldn't stop talking. And he was excited. He paused at a point and says, "Patrick, you have a book here." And that was the first, set me on the path to that. And again, it was 3 years in the making, and really, just couldn't stop doing the research and interviewing people and trying to uncover little pieces of the story.
It's really remarkable, the research you've done, and I just want to commend you. You really brought your A game to it. The teacher did an excellent job.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Well, in 2018, a young woman came up to the Flint Hills Publishing booth at the Kansas Book Festival and said to me, "Would you be interested in publishing a book written by a blind woman who lives independently on a hobby farm raising Nubian dairy goats and showing dogs in AKC competitions?" Hands down, best pitch I've ever heard. Reyna Bradford's memoir, In My Hands, Stories of the Land and Animals I Love But Can't See, beautifully describes her unique and inspiring life. She's also written a book about dog training. And Sandra here, who owns a wonderful border collie, well, with you and Nick, Annie belongs to both of you, when she was a puppy, was the model for the cover art. So Sandra, I believe you have a question for Reyna.
Well, first off, I'd like to say I would not have my border collie if not for a glowing review from Reyna when I asked I want to look for a dog, what kind should I get? She said, let me talk to Reyna, and then I said, I want a border collie. And Reyna says, border collies are weird. And my dog is very weird, so I was prepared. I was an educated dog owner straight out the gate. But I'm grateful for the training experience. I've grown a lot as a person with a high demand dog, which you would get with a border collie. But most importantly, I would like to ask Reyna, what is the number one thing you would advise a dog owner to do with their pet?
Okay, well, Thea has strictly charged me that I do not tell you the most important thing you can do for your dog is to feed it. So
I got that covered.
yeah, they got that figured out. I would say, as it's kind of a secondary thing, when you feed your dog, because I know you're going to, make sure the dog works for their food. Do not plunk the dish down and say, there you go, enjoy. And for heaven's sake, don't free feed your dog. Please don't do that. But the most important thing, if I had to pick one, would be to walk the dog. Get out, get off the couch, get out of the yard, and walk the dog. It's not original, but I'm going to say that I love to say tired dogs are good dogs, and good dogs make happy owners. Dogs are made to travel. They are not. I'm not talking. I think here in the U.S. we have the idea that we snap on the leash and we take a stroll around the block and we text on our phone while the dog sniffs at every blade of grass within reach and pees on everything. That is not walking your dog. That is pottying your dog. When I say walk your dog, I mean get out there in a brisk, business-like stride and go out for like an hour. And I don't really care what the weather is unless it's 100 degrees, but in that case, make it a shorter walk. You know, dogs are made to travel. They are not couch potatoes. Most of them are purpose-bred for something, whether it's hunting or guarding or retrieving or herding, like a weird border collie. And so do your dog and yourself a favor and get out and get some exercise. And if you can do it off leash, that's awesome. If not, put on a retractable leash and just step out and go exploring and be the leader and get out and get some exercise. And I have a little insider information. It's good for the owner too. So get out and do it.
Thank you.
Those of us who are parents know what a great feeling it is when our kid makes a good friend. And it's an added bonus when the friend's parents are cool. That was certainly the case with the Turk family. Come on up, Steve. So when I learned that the Turk dad, Stephen Turk, had in mind a vampire series, I was excited that I could help him realize his goal of becoming a published author. Paul's out there.
Okay, I don't want him behind there. I don't want any rim shots.
Oh, no rim. No, that would be good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, hi.
Steve, what inspired you to write about vampires and magical creatures?
Okay, it spawns from two things. Science fiction was endearing to both of my parents, so there's that influence. And then you have the influence moments of when you're a teen, you're looking for identity. And when you find out that you're from the island of misfit toys, you know, you have this dark sense to you, and you look for camaraderie. Well, that comes from groups like Gothic music, literature, that sort of thing. And so, don't judge me, Dr. Walt. Okay. But you embrace it. You embrace it.
Yeah,
So yes.
Well, one of the things I love about your book, and we're almost done with your second book, it'll be out by Halloween.
Nice.
Your dialogue is so realistic. Where does that come from? Are you a good listener, or?
Okay. I learned to be. It was one of the most difficult things I had when I was first learning how to write. And so I studied people like Oscar Wilde and some of the classics, and then looked at modern literature and learned how to listen to real conversation. So yes.
Well, it shows.
Yeah.
It's great. Okay, I promise we'll get the book. We'll get the book going. It'll be out by Halloween
All
for
right.
sure. Book 2, and then book 3.
Yeah,
All right.
I'm already working on it.
Okay.
So yes.
Thank you, Steve. I recently spoke at an authors conference in Oklahoma and was very fortunate to meet an author. She pitched her book to Flint Hills Publishing, and I said, "Where do you live?" And she said, "Topeka, Kansas." I said, "Fantastic. Come on in, Connie." Connie Beckett has a lot of published works under her book. You can find under her belt. You can find them on her website. Connie, you are so chill, a very laid-back author, so easy to work with, and you also know how to write a page-turning story. So will you share a reading from your new novel we just published, North of Juarez, Far from Saigon?
I will. I'd like to give a little background first. I'd like to give a little background first. Garden City, Kansas is my hometown. And back in the 1970s, 1970s, early 1980s, Iowa beef packers brought in their beef packing plant. And they also had both immigrants from Mexico and Central America, as well as refugees after the end of the Vietnam conflict that came to work in the meat industry. So the book is based on that scenario. Of course, the characters and the events are totally the product of my overactive imagination. So the book is written with 2 points of view, and I'm going to read you a little bit of each point of view. Curtis, Kingston, Kansas, summer 1984. It was the end of July, and the tiny, windowless office was a sauna. Curtis pulled a tissue from the box on his desk and wiped his brow. There was barely enough room for his desk, never mind the wobbly metal table where Alicia worked. The copy machine and filing cabinet sat outside the office, and he knew Alicia took every opportunity to escape and file or cover for the receptionist. That left Curtis wedged in a corner, his desk and the bulky computer terminal sitting on top, a barrier between him and the door. He looked at the wall clock. It showed 4:10. A click sounded with every jerk of the second hand, a nagging reminder that the grant application he was reviewing had to be completed and in the mail before the post office's last 5:45 pick-up time. His stomach burned. Curtis opened the desk drawer for the bottle of antacids. Before he could pop one in his mouth, he heard the soft click of beads on beads. A soft Latina girl, 6 or 7 years old, he guessed, entered the office. Her sleeveless white blouse made her brown skin appear even darker. Today, her dark hair had been twisted into long braids that ended with beaded rubber bands. Head down, she glanced at Curtis out of the corner of her eye. Then she turned, her head lifted, and she beamed a white teeth smile at Alicia. "Hello, Mrs. Rodriguez," the girl said. "Well, hello to you too," Alicia said. Curtis ignored the girl. He focused on the papers in front of him and tried to appear too busy to acknowledge her. Every day this girl came and bothered him. Didn't she understand the time and work involved in running a community youth center like this? He and Alicia had work to do, especially today. It was hard enough scheduling staff and volunteers and making sure expenses were justified for the approval of the board of directors. Was it also required of him to suffer this daily interruption? "We're really busy now," he said, hoping to dissuade the girl. He saw a flicker of uncertainty before the girl turned from him and shot another smile at Alicia. Curtis realized he had lost the first skirmish in the battle for Alicia's time. Rochelle. Across the street from the Kingston Community Center, Rochelle Castro Sanchez sat at the front of her store, between the plate glass windows and the counter where the register stood. From there, she was able to watch both the street and any customers browsing in the store. She turned a page of World Vogue magazine. Rochelle alternated between looking at Vogue's leggy blondes as they leaned against the white adobe wall in their short dresses and red heels, and the sidewalk outside the store. One of the storefront's tall windows had a crack in the upper corner, or a pellet round. Energy spent by distance or velocity had hit it. The pellet picked a chip out of the glass and sent a single ray of bright toward the corner. The heavy glass windows were expensive, and Rochelle hoped the seasonal changes from hot, dry heat to shuddering cold wouldn't make the crack worse. Sometimes when the sun hit the glass just right, and it illuminated the line, making it glow with a life of its own. When the sun moved, the light winked out, the line becoming nearly invisible again. She had read someplace that glass was neither a solid nor a liquid, but something in between. How did that work? When her bones eventually turned to dust, would the glass pane on its slow slide to the door finally pull the crack apart? She sighed and turned back to the magazine. Damn, it was hot today. Heat waves shimmered off the tops of cars in the lot across the street at the community youth center. Black asphalt in the street had softened in the sun and had sucked at shoes and tires. Rochelle lifted a sheet of long black hair, letting the soft breeze of the ceiling fan cool the back of her neck. She pulled a tissue out of the box and dabbed it across her chest and between her breasts, where a bead of perspiration tickled. She was proud of the high roundness of the breast. It had taken her 3 long years of swallowing hormone pills and saving money before she could afford the implants. There was still the final surgery, necessary to complete the change from the boy that she had been born to the woman she always knew lived inside. She had the money tucked away, but time didn't seem to click from one day into the next without action.
Last week, the Topeka and Shawnee County Public Library sponsored an event for our next author, and what a turnout. People actually had to be turned away. Fortunately, you could get a recording of that wonderful conversation between Craig Yorke and his editor, Nathan Fredrickson, on the Flint Hills Publishing YouTube channel. But for tonight, back by popular demand, Craig and Nate.
Well, Craig, it's great to be up here with you again. Anyone who knows you personally or has read your incredible memoir knows you're a man of many talents, not the least of which is playing the fiddle. And I'm so excited that you're going to be playing a bit for us tonight, but before I ask you to take it away, I got to ask you, what's the difference between a fiddle and a violin?
Well, it's a good question. Is this on? Okay. Well, basically, this is a wooden box, in essence. And whether you call it a fiddle or a violin, has to do with what your relationship is to it. If you're getting along, it's kind of a fiddle. If there's friction, it's more violin. Anyway, just a word about Steep. It's a memoir of a black neurosurgeon, more about success than about bigotry. What the price of the success was and what the value is. So anyway, whoever came to the library, thank you. Whoever wasn't able to get in, my apologies.
Well, yeah, and thank you so much for your time then and now. It sounds like you're going to play one or two or three pieces. Anything you want to say about it before?
It's getting dark. Anyone who's seen the Ken Burns Civil War series will probably recognize this. It's called A Shokin Farewell.
Susan Kraus spent her career helping others as a therapist, and that experience heavily influenced her novels that she and I characterize as socially conscious fiction. Susan is the kind of person I call lightning in a bottle. She is passionate, enthusiastic, and very hardworking, and her books reflect that. So Susan, the Grace McDonald series explores a lot of very serious issues: domestic violence, religious extremism and the damage it can do to families, sexual assault on college campuses, and your latest novel explores the COVID pandemic in some very compelling ways. Why did you choose fiction to address these important issues?
Well, is this good and now loud? I think there was somebody saying to me, when you get close to a mic, you have to go right up to it. And if you do that, it works. Okay. You had to have me following the music, huh? I think I write words because I can't make music. You've got to do something. I've been a therapist for 45 years, and I think part of that is helping people. I really love my work, but a lot of it has been working with people to rewrite their life stories, or in many ways, really to edit. To go back and to sort of see which parts they want to accentuate, which parts, if they kind of cut out, would make for a better story, and move people towards a happier ending, which is a convoluted way of sort of going about it. The thing is that as a social worker, I couldn't just write. Actually, I'm working on a rom-com now, so I shouldn't say that. I couldn't just write. It came out of my work. It came out of my life. So I mean, the relationship stuff was 20 years ago, and when nobody talked about narrow relationships where there wasn't physical abuse, but there was just this kind of control. And I wanted to have it be a young woman who recognized it, even though there were no words to put into it, and then moved forward and then started to trust her gut and came out of it. At the same time, I'm really committed to empathy. I want the novels to create and elicit empathy in readers. And nobody's going to pick up a book, I don't know about you, pick up a book on, I want to read a book about, the interface of campus sexual assault and hookup culture. It's like, no, you don't want to read nonfiction, but fiction, it kind of is a back door. It kind of brings you around. You're into the plot line. You get connected to the characters. You want to know what's going to happen to them, and you feel empathy. And in a book like, for instance, All God's Children, it was about a custody battle over the kid in the Westboro Baptist Church. And my research, it's like I'm meticulous in research, and I want it to be accurate and truthful. So I went to services. I hung out with them. I did all this, and then I I came together for lots of interviews of people who were in the Westboro Baptist and outside, and at the end of the book, there's empathy for the people who have left, but there's also an empathy for the readers, for the people who were there. And then the last one, yeah, the COVID book. My memory is slipping here. So the other day somebody said, "What, I could not remember the names of any of the characters in my first book." You know, like I'm working on it. The COVID book, for me, it's the most complex book in the sense that it has all these different points of view. But I mean, I'm looking around at all of you, and it's like, if we are sitting here, one word comes together that would include, in a very inclusive way, all of us, and that's survivor. We're here, and we are survivors. And so the COVID book came out of, I started it in the fall of 2020, and it ends in the fall of 2021. But of course it didn't come out for another year or two after that, so I was working on it. But it covers that period when we really didn't know what was happening. And what's amazing to me, as anybody that reads the book now is saying, "Oh my God, I forgot that. I forgot that. I forgot that." I mean, we remember masks, but there's so much else. And it's just so many different points of view. I mean, I don't know, a respiratory therapist and teachers and a single mom and an African-American funeral director. You know, it's just different, lots of different points of view of different experiences, and yet we all shared it. So for me, it's like, I want my readers, it's like therapy. it's like, read it and take what you can from it, and then, okay. Bye.
Thank you so much, honey. Thank you for sharing that. Without question, Lynn Murphy has strengthened the foundation of Flint Hills Publishing. Her background as an educator and founder and president of Key Innovative Business Solutions makes her an incredible mentor for yours truly. Lynn has published 2 books that spring from her platform, Women Who Push the Limits. Lynn's generosity extends to being my critical tech support person on every online book launch that we have done. She's always there to guide me when I'm needing advice, and her positive influence really continues to grow as she and Sandra are working together on a very important new project I've asked them to talk to us about tonight.
Well, with Lynn's first book, 50 Life Lessons for Inspiring Women, I know you've segued into 2 major projects. Of course, one of them I'm heavily involved with, and I'd like to talk to you about both of those things for anyone that is not familiar with those 2 projects.
Oh, thank you. And I know you were interested. You asked me earlier, how did I go from writing 50 life lessons for inspiring women to writing Demystifying the Transgender Journey? And I have a true confession to make. I am a reluctant writer. I never wanted to write. I just wanted to teach. You know, the extent of my writing when I was young, and I look at all you authors who have written journals since you were 2 years old. And the extent of my journaling was when I was a teenager. Dear Diary, my boyfriend, you know, and then it deteriorated from there. But I had a wonderful business coach who saw something in me I didn't see, and she encouraged me to write a book. But I didn't want to write about myself, so I interviewed 50 women on the premise of how did they push the limits. And it was such an awesome experience for me to get in touch with these women. I interviewed them on Zoom to really dig deep into who they were and what they'd experienced and what they had to share with other people. And when I finished that book, and thank God Thea published that, Thea and Joni encouraged me to write something more diverse, with a more diverse group of people. So now I am doing interviews with people who were born transgender, their family members, their therapists, friends, family, co-workers, and I'm collaborating with a woman who transitioned when she was 67 years old. And it's been an amazing collaboration. Just the fact that I'm collaborating with somebody is amazing. And we're interviewing people in order to share and educate people on what, the humanity of people who were born transgender, and trying to dissuade people from the misinformation and disinformation that is out there and so prevalent. And thank goodness Sandra is helping me with the podcast. So we're interviewing on Zoom. We've got 17 podcasts out there now. Thankfully, Sandra is our post-production person. We do the interviewing and she does all the rest. And we've gotten such a wide variety of people, parents, people born transgender, male and female, and therapists, and it's just been such an education for me and such a privilege as a cisgender, heterosexual, old white woman that these people honor me with their stories and are sharing these deep, often hurtful and really joyful when they can finally transition. And it's just such an amazing, deep, touching experience. And thankfully, Sandra is helping me get the podcast out. I've got some cards back there. I invite all of you to look at our YouTube channel. We're on podcast channels. Sandra, what am I missing?
All podcast platforms.
All
Work really hard on our YouTube channel.
And it's just such an amazing experience to me. I feel really honored, and hats off to Thea for being patient with me, because the podcast is coming first and the book is going to come after I get a body of my research done. I'm calling this research for the book because it's really fascinating. This is not something to be afraid of. It's not contagious being transgender, for those of you who don't know that. And a therapist we talked, or a researcher we talked to who has a PhD in psychology and one in sociology, has been studying this since the 90s, said 1 in 1,000 people are born transgender. And yeah, it's such a small target in the United States that they are being targeted. So our goal is to humanize and to educate people about being born transgender. And thank you very much, Sandra, for being part of this.
Very grateful to be part of it. I have 2 really amazing jobs, and Flint Hills Publishing is one of them, and demystifying the transgender journey is the other. As an advocate of transgender rights and equality, I'm so grateful to be participating in something meaningful and something that stretches beyond our cis-het white life. It makes me feel very purposeful, and I couldn't have a better person to be working with.
And I couldn't have a better person to be working with either. So thank you.
Maybe it's because she's originally from Arizona, but man, did the sun shine down on me when I met Sandi Richmond. A few decades ago, Sandi and Lynn met while they were at graduate school at the University of Arizona. So I owe yet another round of thanks, come on, and Sandi, to Lynn for guiding Sandi to Flint Hills Publishing. Sandi is by far, hands down, the most inspiring person I've met when it comes to staying active. And you'll know why, just here in a minute. Her commitment to higher education is also inspiring. She achieved her dream of getting her PhD when she was in her late 40s. Her new book, Aging Adventurously, How I Wrote a Book and Got It Published, makes me teary with good feelings every time I read it. Sandi, thank you for coming all the way from Jacksonville, Florida.
Thank you, Thea, and thank you for publishing my 2 books. So I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm so excited to be here. And I just, I want to just talk about 2 things. First of all, just remember it's never too late. Okay, and I'll follow up with that at the end. But it is never too late. And the other thing is, one thing leads to another. So I would not have written Aging Adventurously at 80, How I Wrote a Book and Got It Published, if I hadn't first written Milepost 75. And I would not have written Milepost 75 if I hadn't, after 3 attempts, hiked a Grand Canyon rim to rim to rim. Okay? So because of that, and how it changed my life and created the need for me to write Milepost 75, none of this would have happened. So what I'd like you to do, and I think this is a good time anyway, can I ask you all to stand up and actually experience the rim to rim to rim with me, okay? Yes, come on. All right. Okay, I'm going to step back from the mic, but I will talk really loud, all right? What I'm going to ask you to do is imagine that you are at the south rim of the Grand Canyon, okay? So this will help warm you up too if you're a little cold. Okay, so raise your arms. You're at the south rim of the Grand Canyon. You're looking down at the abyss, the bottom, and looking across at the north rim. So now what you're going to do is go down the south rim to the bottom of the canyon. Then you're going to walk across the silver suspension bridge that is over the roaring Colorado River, right? And then you're going to go over to Phantom Ranch. You're going to sit down for a quick snack, probably a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Fan yourself because it's at least 100 degrees. Okay? Take some water, right? Continue walking across the bottom of the Grand Canyon. Okay? And then you're going to go up the north rim, right? Sit down, have a snack, then turn around, go all the way back down, all the way back across the canyon, back to Phantom Ranch, another snack, more water, more fanning, okay? Then across the Colorado River again, back up the south rim, and then you're going to pat yourself on the back. Yes, yeah, good job. Thank you all. Thank you. So it was because of hiking them that I felt I had a story to tell. And that story sat in my head for 25 years. Once I finally wrote the story, Milestone 75, I started giving book talks. And then what happened was that people said, wow, that was interesting about your Grand Canyon hike and all of the other things that you've done, all the other hikes. But what we really want to know is how did you manage to write a book and get it published at 80? And that's all they wanted to know. So people would be standing in line when I was signing books, and they wanted to just stay there and have the conversation. And it was like, well, you know, people are waiting behind you. So I started writing the questions and answers, started typing those, and the email just to myself. And the document got so long that I called Thea and I said, you know, I think this probably needs to be the second book because there are so many questions and so many answers. And she said, go for it. So that's what I did. Okay, so let me go back just for a minute then and tell you again that it's never too late. Well, it actually is too late for a few things. I'm not going to do another rim to rim to rim. You know, I'm not going to do another rim to rim. But there are a whole lot of things that I will still do. I still have many trips planned, hikes planned, maybe books to write, and so what I can do that I'm never too old to do is to have big dreams, to go after them, to embrace them, and catch them. And that's what I'd like to leave you with, that you hold on to your dreams, and then we can all say, yeah, you're right, it's never too late.
Bonnie and Taylor Gibson, come on up. Our next authors are an amazing mother-daughter duo. Bonnie and I knew each other in high school. I don't have specific memories about you, Bonnie, but I have feeling memories.
Oh, that's even better.
That you were so happy and kind, and working with you, those memories are totally true. Miss Taylor here, she has been an incredible artist. She has a great sense of style, design, and fashion, and it's obviously on display. She's also an author who has worked with her mother on books for Tales of Thunder, and there we go, and then also book 6. That's Tales of Thunder. Sorry, I'll get it right. You guys have written a lot of books, done a great job. Bonnie, what was the inspiration for the Fox Hollow series, and what messages are you hoping to convey?
After a lifelong passion for writing, it was a dream come true to publish something. When the pandemic hit, I felt a deep
desire to speak to children. My daughter was trying to process all the changes in the world. My granddaughter was trying to process all the changes in the world. And so these books became a love story to my family that grew from there. And it started out by sharing wisdom of all the trials and tribulations and unique joys that we have, and unique challenges that we've overcome and done and found the silver linings in our own lives, and translating that to anyone else, and with the hope and deep desire for children to have examples of how to share their emotions, how to deal with their emotions, how to talk to their family about their emotions, how to overcome their obstacles in their day-to-day life through the tales of Mama Fox and her darling cubs, Brush and Meadow. And by book 4, I was really kind of done after book 3, and by book 4, Taylor approached me with a deep desire to share. And she had 2 forms of artwork that she brought to me, and also, and this again was still during the pandemic, and also a title, Tales of Kindness. And we began meeting over coffee, which is her first love, in the mornings in our art studio at home, and we began sharing and talking, and it grew from there, and she became very involved, became a co-author of book 4, and then I moved into book 5, and she needed a sabbatical. And when book 5 came out, she was determined that she needed to write another book. And on book 6, our latest book in the series, she worked, I can't even tell you, way above and beyond my wildest dreams. I'm so proud of you, Miss Taylor. She worked hard. She did 50% of the artwork in that book on her own. She came up, it was prompted by her deep fear of storms. And on a stormy day, that's when she approached me, and her processing of storms, and she's obsessed with the weather channels, and if it starts to rain, a lot of anxiety comes up. And so that book helped herself and other children with the different kinds of storms in our lives. And our whole hope and goal is to share our love and to share our wisdom from our lives, and pray and hope for every child to feel that love, to feel how important their uniqueness is, to be included, and to create a community like Fox Hollow.
Wow, okay. Whew. Taylor, I have a question for you. Do you have plans, or do you want to write another book? Yeah, you heard it here. It's official that we're going to do a book 7. All right, I can't wait. I'm so excited. Congratulations.
Do you have the title? Is it a secret? Yep. Okay.
The title is a secret. I love it. Thank you so much, Ms. Taylor, Mommy. Joyce Stotts, our next author, grew up in Wyandotte and Leavenworth County. She received her degree from Emporia State. She taught junior and senior high English and social studies here in Topeka. She went back to school, got her master's degree, and as she says, she went into the corporate world. Well, whatever you did when your background, come on up, Joyce. You are an amazing historical fiction writer. I love your brand new book, hot off the presses, Rodantha's Road. It captivated me. It's the story of a young abolitionist couple traveling from the East Coast to Bleeding, Kansas. It's a page turner. And in the back of the novel, this was new in a novel. She's got several songs with notation, and Joyce is going, and her friend are going to share an original tune with us tonight.
Anybody.
I thought that would be a problem.
All right. Our last author, thank you for all of your patience. I've enjoyed listening to everybody tonight. I hope you have as well. So, okay. All right. So, Nathan and Daniel, come on up. Daniel is another amazing historian with a brand new novel. He's no poser when it comes to the Flint Hills. He grew up in Opie, Kansas, then graduated from Emporia State and went on to KU for law school. There's a lot of us former lawyers up here on the stage, right? But his real passion is history, and his historical novel, The Spoils of Victory, shines because of it. I have brought up again his editor Nathan. These two have had a wonderful working relationship. So let's hear from the two.
Thank you. Dan, it's great talking with you again about your excellent novel again tonight. It's a very complex novel, very rigorously researched, a lot of critical themes, a great cast of characters, everything from the immorality of war to the possibility of redemption to love, both individual and big and social. And so I think it's got a little bit of something for everybody. So by means of an introduction, I was hoping you could tell us, what kind of people are you trying to reach with your novel? Who do you hope to read it? And what do you hope that they can take away from it?
Well, first of all, Leah, thank you for putting me after the musicians and after all of the Grand Canyon and everything. Thank you so much. So this is going to be short and shameless, okay? And I'm going to do it. I'm going to answer your question with questions. How many of you like history? Yeah, you should, Tom. I love history. I learned history at the feet of my immigrant grandmother. She was telling stories, little stories about crossing from Slovenia, where they came, Austria-Hungary, to here. I've loved it always. Second question, how many of you think you know history? Ah, one, okay. Excuse me, and Joyce, you said you were from Emporia State? I think she said you went to Emporia State. I studied history at Emporia State. I was passionate about history all of my life, and about 18 years ago, I thought I knew it, and about 18 years ago, I learned something that I'd never heard of before. I'll ask you, did you know that during World War II, 400,000 German prisoners of war were brought to the United States and held in camps here? How many did? And okay, that's actually pretty good. Did you know this? Did you know that while they were held in camps, American farmers, all of our guys were overseas, American farmers said, what the hell? We got 20,000 Germans sitting here and we have no one to bring in the crops. Can we hire them? And the Army said yes. How many of you knew that they worked on farms? I know some of you had some connections to them. Lots of people around here knew people who knew people. Only Dr. Menninger is old enough to actually have known some of the people. Anyway, I was fascinated with that story. So the reason that it got written was because I felt that it was history that needed to be shared because so many people know so little about it. And the second reason, it was going to come out as a historical piece. It was going to come out as nonfiction, but I realized that I thought it would have greater appeal if we could share it in story form, as long as it was accurate. And that's where Nate came in. Nate helped me become, he transitioned me from being a historian to being a storyteller. And so if you're looking for an aspect of history you don't know, or want to know more about, there are lots of copies back there. I told you this was shameless. Secondly, if you are interested in just a good story, I've heard that. I'm a little prejudiced, but I think it's a good story about not just about the big things, but about everyday people caught up in war. Not just not the Battle of the Bulge and not the giant things in the war, but little things and how people were affected by it. And thirdly, how many of you would agree that these are challenging times that we're living in? George Santayana was a Spanish philosopher who said, those who forget history are condemned to repeat it. And there are lessons in how we as Americans treated the enemy. These were not migrants per se, but they were foreigners brought into the country who had 6 months earlier been shooting Americans, right? They had been killing the Allied troops in North Africa. And we treated them with respect, we forgave them, we cooperated with them, and we realized that not all of them were hardened Nazis. There were a good number of young draftees from Germany who were caught up in the same crap that Hitler offered about making Germany great again. And they lived to tell the tale and to understand. So, that's my pitch. The book's here. If you have questions, let me know. And if you do read it, I would love to know your stories or your reaction to it. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you all, and thanks for your patience and just listening to all of these stories of these authors. And one thing I've noticed is that when people are creative and like to write, they oftentimes have a lot of other talents as well. And so we want to share a couple a special musical talent tonight.
Thank you, everybody. That's all we got for tonight, but in a 20th anniversary, we'll have 4 songs for you. Good night, everyone.
So much. We have a lot of cookies and water. Help yourself, and of course,